Why is everything so woke? I mean, all entertainment has now gone completely woke, or not completely woke necessarily, but largely woke. Every bit of entertainment has to have wokeness in it, has to have some sort of message, some sort of social political message about the zeitgeist of our time being, hey, look, non-whites and non-straights and non-males are all amazing. But if you're straight and you're male and you're white, oh my gosh, you're probably the worst, even if you're any one of those characteristics. Now, what prompted me wanting to discuss this topic? And that was my break that I had. I got a week off from work for summer break. They gave us a week. All right. Being a teacher in my particular field is, well, I mean, it could be worse. I could have no time off, right? Why complain? Well, during that time, I had a procedure, as I mentioned in a previous video, and I was just wrecked. That was the worst. I've had some other really gnarly stuff I've gone through, and I had strep so bad one time when I was 20 for 3 weeks. My throat closed up to about the circumference of 2 pencil thicknesses. And I don't mean 2 and 2, I mean just 2. It was a little bit longer than it was wide. It was like that for about 2 weeks, and they gave me like these 3/4 inch long pills that I had to take 4 of a day for the antibiotic, and I had to get a shot in my butt. I couldn't really eat, and that was not nearly as bad as what I went through with this operation. So that was fun, and to alleviate my stress, I did watch and catch up on, I guess, some of the stuff that I haven't been watching, like the Batman movie that came out recently. I watched that whole thing. I enjoyed it, actually. If you don't like it, that's fine. The reason I liked it is because it was more grounded, more gritty, more realistic. I liked that. I like it when you take things that are fantastical in some way, and then you make them more real. And there's only one part of the movie, and this is going to be a minor spoiler if you haven't seen the film, but just very, very minor. Batman takes an explosion to the face and doesn't get injured. It's like, wait a second. Now he does put up his arm to protect his chin, right? But he still has eyes. Those would have been probably blown out. Even if you close them, you're not going to... I mean, it was like right there in his face. And that would have been easy to write out of the movie. Just have him like the very last second turn and run away and get him, 10 or 15 feet away from the explosion before it goes off. And then he would have been okay. Now, I don't see any way around him dying in that scenario, but okay, it's a movie. I'll let that slide because I did enjoy the movie overall. There were some other issues with it. Some other things that I watched were The Boys. We're going to talk about those two things. And another thing that actually prompted this video is a discussion that my students were having, which gets me into why is everything so woke. Now, before we get started, please remember that I do appreciate everybody supporting my work. And also remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed because YouTube doesn't subscribe everybody every day. Or not everybody, but some people every day. And if you could watch the video to the very end, that seems to help the algorithm more than anything. I'm getting more subs, but not enough. I need more. So let's go ahead and get into this topic here and talk about the Batman and what happened with it. Now, this is a woke film, like I said. And for those of you who don't believe me, here's an example. This is detailing the efforts of a young black woman in the film.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming to today's memorial for our beloved mayor, Don Mitchell Jr. Our program will begin shortly. As a reminder, the family asks that those wishing to honor the mayor's memory consider a donation to the cause most dear to his heart, the Gotham Renewal Fund, our city safety net.
What good's a safety net? Didn't catch anybody. Didn't help my daughter when she needed it. I can tell you that. Guy was just another rich scumsucker. He got what he deserved. Know what I mean? Hey, don't I know you?
Bruce Wayne, why haven't you called me back?
I'm sorry.
I'm Bella Real. I'm running for mayor. I wouldn't be bothering you here, but your people keep telling me you're unavailable. Will you walk with me? Mr. Wayne. Mr. Wayne. You know, you really could be doing more for this city. Your family has a history of philanthropy, but as far as I can tell, you're not doing anything. If I'm elected, I want to change that.
Now, first off, I want to point out that these police officers on the second story pointing their guns into the crowd, you don't do that. You don't even point fake guns at people. You're not supposed to. The reason you ever point a gun at somebody is if you're planning on pulling a trigger. That's it. Now, you see Batman here talking to this Bella Real. And who is Bella Real? She's running for mayor. Why is a 20-year-old running for mayor? Now, I've looked this up. And this woman is actually, the actress who plays her is actually 24 when this film was made. She's 24 years old. Now, you would think that a big city like Gotham might have some sort of like age requirement for running for mayor. And I looked up in New York City's age requirement for running for mayor, and it's apparently 18. You only have to be 18 to be mayor in New York City. It's like, oh, okay, well, that seems rather troublesome to me. I don't, why an 18-year-old could be mayor? Wow. Why is this so woke? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Bella Real is a young black woman. Exactly the opposite of an old white man, right? You can't get more opposite than that. And I bet, her backstory is that she's like super queer, like queerer than a $3 bill. Like the gayest of the gay. She has like 10 trans lesbian girlfriends. Whatever a trans lesbian is, I don't know. But she has like 10 of them. Just munch and rug all day long. That's all she does. She's not even actually working on making Gotham better. She just wants to make it better for people with her perverse lifestyle. I'm sure that's what her backstory is. I don't know. But I'm betting the writers were thinking that. Now, they have her campaign slogan is real change. Her name is spelled R-E-A-L with an exclamation point for real. So it's all real change. And I'm like, no. Just because you put a black person into office doesn't mean you're going to get real change or real change for the better. We saw this with Obama. I mean, what changed? Race relations got worse. That's what changed. They've been terrible ever since Obama. And it has something to do with Occupy Wall Street, I'm sure. This is put in here to say, oh, look how bad of a person you are, Bruce Wayne. As a rich white man, you're just the worst. You're not doing what you need to do to help the city. And it's like every night he's putting his life on the line to help the city. What are you talking about? So that's one thing in here that's woke, and it's obvious that it's woke. I watched Vosh's review of Ben Shapiro's review of the movie. And Vosh, being progressive idiot that he is, this guy, I mean, I did not know he was so bad. I watched him a couple times, but this was just outrageously, it's like, wow, you are really stupid. Or some of the things that he said about that is like, he points out that being anti-woke is actually being anti-black when Ben Shapiro talks about this Bella Real person. It's like, no, being anti-woke is not anti-black. And I'm going to explain that to you right here, right now. The Cosby Show from the 1980s, I used to watch that when I was a child. Nobody would call that show woke, even though it very rarely had any white characters show up in it at all. It was almost all black people in the show. Nobody would say that show was woke because it's not woke. It wasn't about pressing an agenda. Look how wonderful white people, or look how wonderful black people are, or look how bad white people are, or look how wonderful this race is, but white people are evil, which is what all these shows are doing today. It was about a black family in New York City, and not only were almost all the characters black in the show, but the two main characters, that is the husband and wife, Bill Cosby and his wife. Bill Cosby's character was a doctor, a medical doctor, a very well-respected medical doctor who made a lot of money, and his wife was a very well-respected lawyer who made a lot of money. So you could easily make the argument that was woke, but nobody makes that argument because it wasn't about the progressive agenda. And there have been many times when I point out, hey, look, this element of this show or this show in general, 10 or 20 years ago, if we would seen this, we wouldn't have thought it was woke. We would have been like, oh, it's just a show about a powerful woman, or it's just a show about this cool black guy. We wouldn't have cared. But now everything is like, yeah, it's suspect because you put this black character in here. Whether you did it for wokeness or not, I'm just going to assume it's for woke points because that's what everything is these days, or at least enough stuff is these days that I might as well just assume that and I'll be safe. Now, another thing that Vosh points out in regards to this Bella Real character running for mayor. Okay, so this is a much more complicated scenario he sets up. I'll leave a link to his video down in the comments, but he says that, like, oh yeah, Ben Shapiro, you don't want this forced diversity, but you want it when it like supports your agenda, because he's saying, like, look, all the white people in the movie are evil, not all of them, but all the evil people in the movie are white, and the Riddler is an incel, and there's this other problem. Oh yeah, politics, like there's no black people in politics, but it's like this Bella Real person is going into politics, so that kind of tears down your whole argument right there, because he's saying that, like, Ben Shapiro wants forced diversity when it comes to politics and being an incel and all these bad things, but he doesn't want it when it comes to being a good guy. And it's like, no, that's not the point that Ben is trying to make. But the fact of the matter is there are plenty of black people in politics. They might not have been president, but so what? There's lots of black people that are in politics. And you know what? It's not about being black or white, because if it were about being black and white, then everybody on my side of the fence, on the anti-woke side, would be complaining about people like Candace Owens, Thomas Sowell, Larry Elder, all these black people that are against the woke agenda. We would be complaining about them too. It's not about that. It has absolutely nothing to do with the color of your skin. It has to do with your message. And he does go on a diatribe at one point about how the progressives are not the racists in this scenario. And it's sad because he's white. He doesn't see that he's standing against white people. It's like, you don't realize that if it were to come to a race war, you would be like, oh, I'm on the side of the non-whites. And it's like, you would then be killed because everybody would be against you if it was a race war. I'm not saying that it should be that way or that I want that, but just the reality is, if there were such a thing, you have no home, right? If you're against your own race in a race war. The fact is it's like, you're against white people, Vosh. You know, he put it off on the Republicans. The Republicans are the ones who are actually, and I'm not a Republican, but I think he assumes that all Republicans are anti-woke and all anti-woke are Republicans. I don't know if that's what he thinks or not, but it seems like that's what he thinks. And the thing is no, I mean, I'm married to a woman who isn't white. What the hell? I don't understand. On top of which, it's, again, like I've said many times, it's not about having these people in movies, or having them successful in movies. And he's also overlooking the whole idea of like, oh, look, we're anti-gay too. Or it's about protecting society and the customs and norms that have allowed us as a country to become the most powerful nation with the highest standard of living, or close to the highest standard of living in the entire world. There's nothing to do with race. If you do that with like 50% of the population being black, great. We don't care. We just think that we all need to be making this country better for everybody. And he goes on to talk about how the movie is about going after powerful people, and that Republicans and they claim they're anti-oligarchy, but they're totally for oligarchy because they don't want to get any of this corruption out of the politics. And I'm like, what do you think Trump was? So all these Trumpians are excited about Trump because he's a fresh face. He's like a breath of fresh air in this corrupt political system that we have. And talk about being hypocritical, because these progressives are like, they so totally support Biden, who is just a crony politician from 50 years ago. It's like, where are you getting these notions from that I am the one who wants to not get rid of the corruption in politics? He's saying that Ben Shapiro he's being a hypocrite. He's anti-oligarchy, but then he doesn't stand against the American oligarchy. He's like, I think he does. I think he is far more libertarian than I am. And that's the thing. We could get into a whole discussion about libertarianism. I'm going to skip that, but yeah, a lot of these, libertarians are for like getting rid of all of the politicians in government. So moving on back to the film and the things that I noticed in it that were woke. So there's this part here, the scene where Catwoman, who, by the way, Catwoman is played by the daughter of Lenny Kravitz and Lisa Bonet, who are both half black, half white. I guess Kravitz it's questionable because one of his parents was Jewish. I think his father was Jewish. So are Jewish people white? I don't know. That still seems to be up in the air. So we'll just say that they're both half black, half white. That means that Zoe Kravitz, who plays Catwoman, is half black. Selena Kyle, in the comic books, was always portrayed as white. And I think you should base all this stuff should be informed by the comic books. You should base the characters on the comic book characters, period, hands down, and you should not change their race. So she's supposed to be a white woman. But she does definitely look good here, and that, Catwoman was always seen as attractive. Now, full disclosure, I am not a big fan of the Batman comic books. I have several of them. Probably in the universe of Batman, I probably have more comic books than any other type of comic. Between my Robin comics and my Catwoman comics and my Batman and Joker and Nightwing comics. But I don't have a huge comic book collection to begin with, and then I'm not like, oh my god, Batman's amazing. I enjoy the movies. I've seen all of them except the one with George Clooney and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I heard that one was terrible anyway. I do enjoy the films, and like I said, I enjoyed this one. But Catwoman in the films, with the exception of the Catwoman movie, when she was played by Halle Berry, who is definitely not white. Yeah, Catwoman is always a white woman. Always has been. And in the animated series, she was blonde even. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you there. That you need to understand that you just can't go changing race. And my students say, "Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't change anything about the character. Unless it's a black character, right?" So she talks about these old white, the rich white men.
I thought you were vengeance.
Your friend got involved with the wrong people. She didn't know any better. Maybe you should have explained it to her.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
It means your choices have consequences.
Jesus Christ. Choices? Whoever the hell you are, you obviously grew up rich.
Now, they might as well just be saying, you must have been white here. But she later on does say that.
All anyone cares about in this place are these white, privileged assholes. The mayor, the commissioner, the DA. Now Thomas and Bruce Wayne.
Now, another thing about the movie that obviously is woke is Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon, who is a white character in the comic books, and in every other rendition of Batman that I'm aware of, is black. Now, nothing against the actor who plays him. I think his name is Tim Wright, or is it Jeff Wright? Yeah, Jeffrey Wright. A good actor. I mean, he is a good actor. Nothing against him as a person or as an actor, but he's not Jim Gordon, right? And in the movie, the police commissioner, who is white, male, and totally incompetent, gets killed, and then Jim Gordon, the good, kind-hearted black man, of course, the perfect black person, rises up to become Commissioner Gordon, because that's how it should be. In the movie altogether, there are only 3 white people portrayed as good, and one only had like one line, and then the other one was Alfred, and then the other one is Batman, because Bruce Wayne is not portrayed as a good person. And I think the only reason that they portrayed Batman as a white person is because if they had made him black, nobody would have seen the movie. And I've already done a video on Black Man, and there is a black man. He's in the comics. Again, you want to make everybody, you want to make every superhero, every established character a different race so that you can get the money from the sales on that. And it's just like, this is ridiculous. Now, as my students would say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you change a character's race because their backstory is not changed by changing the race of the character. Except Bruce Wayne acquired his money through his parents' and grandparents' activities that allowed them to become wealthy business owners, etc., during a time when black people were not allowed to rise economically in this country. Not saying it's right, I'm just saying that's how it was. So that automatically changes the backstory. That would totally change the backstory of Bruce Wayne. And his backstory is about how they were wealthy and his parents got killed because of their wealth. So yeah, I mean, that changes the back. But, it doesn't matter to my students because, again, he's white, really, is what it comes down to. So this conversation I keep referring to with my students, I'm not allowed to engage in these conversations with them, but I just let them talk and I listen, and I maybe toss in my 2 cents here and there. But I had a couple students talking about how you can change the race of white characters, but you can't change the race of black characters because you're in a country, America, there's black people, there's white people, there's all these different races of people. So it doesn't change the character if you change their race from white to a different race. It doesn't change the character. But I'm like, okay, well, it does. I mean, why can't you just change the race of a black character to white? Well, it changes their whole backstory. Well, you changed Batman's backstory then too, if you change him from white to black. And you might be like, well, what about Jim Gordon? I mean, he's the secondary character. You don't change anything in the comics or in the stories. But we have black Batwoman, black Batgirl. I believe the original Batgirl was Kathy Kane, but the next Batgirl character was Barbara Gordon, and she has red hair. How many black people naturally have red hair? Like none of them. How many black people naturally have blue eyes? Like none of them. But Barbara Gordon, the daughter of James Gordon, the commissioner, is white and has red hair and blue eyes. So you're fundamentally changing the backstory of this character. Oh, but it's okay because she's white, right? And that's what my students would, I mean, they think that they're being like rational and reasonable, but they're not. I tossed in my 2 cents on them with this. It said, well, what about, like mermaids? The myth comes out of Europe, so they should be white. No, she should look like a fish. Not the greatest example of a character being bent to the whims of the progressives, because this supposed new, what is the name of that Disney film with the mermaid? Whatever, the Little Mermaid, right? She's supposed to be a black girl. Well, in the original myth, she was green. I'm like, look, mermaids are a myth that was developed by European sailors, as a result of which they were all white. I don't know what to tell you about that other than that's how it is. But you can go, okay, so you can go change that because it doesn't really affect the character of the mermaid if she has whatever color skin, right? It doesn't. Not a great example, but I mean, I can't get into these discussions with my students, right? So because if I do, I could get into big trouble, and not only that, there are worries. So we got to stay on subject. We were on a break and they got to talking. I just let them talk. Now, what I should have done was brought up the Fantastic Four, the more recent Fantastic Four, because here we go. We got the black Human Torch. And, it doesn't change his backstory if he's black as compared to white. But he is the brother of the Invisible Girl in the Fantastic Four. And the Invisible Girl in this example of the movie is white. So shouldn't he be white. Now, you could change both of them, I guess, and that wouldn't change the backstory, right? Now, and you could also make the argument, well, in the other Fantastic Four movies, Sue Storm was played by Jessica Alba, who's Hispanic. Yeah, but she could pass as white, and she did. She had blonde hair. I think they gave her blue contacts, too, for blue eyes. I'm not sure. She might have brown eyes, but she could pass as white. If you want to have an actor who can pass as a different race play that race, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. That's fine. But you can't really have a black person pass as white. It doesn't really work. Maybe a mulatto person, but not a black person, because they're going to have dark enough skin. It's not going to work. So moving on into this discussion, I want to talk about the Black Panther, because that was something that was brought up. You can't change the Black Panther to a white guy, because that changes his whole backstory. Oh, it changes his whole backstory. Does it really? According to my students, right? It's okay to change the race of any character as long as it doesn't change their backstory. That's what they seem to be claiming. I mean, they didn't say that specifically, but they did say you can't change the character of the Black Panther because it changes his whole backstory. There are millions of Caucasians born in Africa every single day. Millions of them. Here's some images of them. Some Moroccans, some Egyptians. So these are African countries. So yeah, they could easily be Caucasian at the very least. He could easily be Caucasian. Not white, but Caucasian. Here's another explanation as to why Black Panther might be white. Perhaps his parents were visiting Africa for whatever reason as tourists, and they were somehow killed while he was a toddler still, wandering in the forest, discovered by natives of Wakanda, and they took him to the king or the prince, and he said, I will raise him as my own son. And then when he grew up, he became Black Panther, even though he was white. There's a perfectly legitimate explanation. And you can say the same thing against me and say, well, Batman can be Black Man because he could have been adopted by the Waynes. You're right, he could have been. But my whole point is to tear down my students' argument that, well, you can't just... I don't think you should change Black Panther. I honestly don't. I think you should leave him black. I think you should leave the characters, the race they were, in the comic books. That's it. Don't change them. We know that they're being changed to promote non-whites, to bring up these people who are not white, because, well, look, they need to have a fair chance in the world. It's not fair that the white people get all of the credit and they get everything and they get, life's so easy for them. Yeah, uh-huh. Yep, I can't get a job now. Like, I have a job. I couldn't get another one. Especially in Hollywood. I mean, it's just common knowledge that you can't be a white actor in Hollywood. Not that I've ever acted, but I have to be very, very hopeful that I maintain the current position I have or find a way to make money on my own, because nobody wants to hire a white man anymore. And well, we've seen these HR stories coming out where I'm not going to hire any white men. Like, okay. Now, moving on to The Boys. Why do I want to bring up The Boys? If you have not seen The Boys Season 3, I managed to watch the whole thing on my hiatus from work and recovery from my surgery. The Boys is woke. It's always been woke. It's something I find bothersome about the show. In this last season, they had this character, Blue Hawk, who was he's a white guy who was overzealously policing a black community, and he killed just a family man. He just randomly grabbed this family man who was just a family man. He wasn't going to commit any crimes. He was a family man, and he was a black man. You're just targeting black people because, and he brings up the point. Blue Hawk brings up the point. Hey, look, I go where the crime is. You don't want to have crime in your community, then whose fault is that? It's true. Now, it's probably more of a response to poverty than it is a racial thing, but I don't know that. I don't have the data on that to prove that it is rather a poverty-driven situation than it is a racial-driven situation. I don't know which one is going to be stronger in the end. And it wouldn't be racial anyway. It would be cultural. Because I don't think that a person's race determines that much about their psychology. Anyway, Blue Hawk gets killed by a black character, gruesomely so, in a very painful manner. But I think they could have used the character better and could have done more with him. But they got to have that evil white man who's keeping the black man down, or keeping whatever race of people down that isn't white. It's always black man. It's always white versus black. It's never anything else in these. That's the thing with the Bosch saying, oh, it's the Republicans and the anti-woke, they're against the black people. No, it's you guys that think that white people and black people should be pitted against each other. I don't freaking care. My boss is black. He used to be my office mate. He moved on to a different position in the company. But yeah, he was black too. He's a nice guy. It doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters the way that the progressives think that it matters. That the woke think that it matters. They think it's like a life and death situation, and it really has to be changed because black people are suffering. And I'm like, people are suffering in all races. That's the point of people like me who are against the woke. People are suffering in every racial group. Now moving on back onto The Boys. I gotta point this out because it was so obviously woke. It was so freaking scary woke. And I found out something about Amazon. Hey, you can't screen grab Amazon when you try to. I tried to make a screen grab of the end of the season 3 finale. I couldn't do it. It would just, the screen came black. On my recording, the screen is all black. It's crazy. I didn't know that. Now, there's other ways around these sorts of things, but so now this is going to be a tiny spoiler, and that is that Homelander has survived everything that they threw at him. That's the spoiler. That's it. That's the only thing I'm spoiling by telling you what I'm going to tell you here. Homelander is like Superman, only evil. He's and nobody knows that he's evil. Well, some people do, but he's just got like this huge ego and suffers from a lot of emotional damage and thinking that he's better than everybody. So he just is like, screw people. I mean, they're beneath me because they're little insects. Why am I defending these people? But he flies down and lands amongst a bunch of protesters that are supporting him and against his female antagonist. They're like, oh yes, the female antagonist evil, Homelander good. And it's very, very clear that these people are the nationalist Republican types, the far right conservative types. It is very clear that that's who they're supposed to represent. They have like signs about having like God and guns and make America safe again, or I don't think it's make America safe again. I think it's just make America safe or something like that. And America safety first or something. And all these signs that are very reminiscent of like what Donald Trump might say. They have like, they're wearing the American flags and they're waving American flags and they're almost all white. There's a few exceptions that are Asian because we all know that Asians and whites are nearly at the same level of badness in the world. And so he just kind of lands there and he's like, oh, you're so wonderful. You're the greatest. And then a protester throws a can of something and hits his son, Homelander's son, in the face. His son, who's also super strong like he is. So it's like that didn't hurt him at all. And he calls what did he say? I think he called him a fascist. I don't remember. Anybody who is right of, say, Stalin is a fascist according to these people. And anyway, so Homelander just flat out lasers him and kills him right there. The first time we openly see Homelander kill somebody in public in front of witnesses. And then they all start to cheer for him. All, yeah, Homelander. And this is what these progressives thinks that the anti-woke, that the right want. And it's like, not really. I mean, maybe. I'm sure there's some that do because there's all kinds of people. This is what the progressives want. They're injecting their own desires they're projecting their own desires onto the people who are anti-woke. Most people who are right or anti-woke just want to be left alone. Now, me being anti-woke, I don't want to be left alone necessarily, but I do want to, like, not be the bad guy just because I am white and male and straight. That's ridiculous. I'm not a bad person because I am white, male, and straight. But that has absolutely nothing to do with me being a bad person, just like saying somebody who is black, gay, and female is a good person. That does not follow. You could be black, gay, and female. Like we saw with the video I did on that Chara Mack, that Rhode Island senator. She's obviously not a good person, but she's female, black, and gay. So yeah, it doesn't follow. Your race and your sexual orientation and your gender do not make you good or bad. It just doesn't follow. They're putting these woke messages in everything now, and we're supposed to just eat it up as consumers and agree with it. Don't watch these shows. I mean, don't give them the money to promote these. Don't give them the attention. They don't deserve it. They're trash. All this woke stuff is trash. It's garbage. And it shouldn't be out there in my entertainment. Now, if you want to make a show that's specifically about that, fine, go ahead. But don't just toss it into everything because that's them trying to subliminally or propagandically influence us. They're trying to sneak these messages in. Maybe they'll go under the radar and you won't notice it. Or, hey, look, this is a cool movie about Batman. Let's put some woke stuff in there because people are going to watch it and then that'll make them more woke. It's BS. It's okay because there was Batman in the movie. He's white and he's male. He's straight. He's a good guy. So it's okay. We can have the woke. No. That's stupid. I know what you're trying to do. So it's infuriating and it's unfortunate, but hopefully we can get back to where we're just making entertainment. Don't support Hollywood. Don't support any of these shows and you won't have that problem. It'll go away. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.